Hey guys, welcome back to the Third Hour podcast where we talk about church culture and real topics within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. My name is Mimi Bascom. I'm your host today, and I am joined by the lovely Shayla. How are you?
I am so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. So thank you for coming on. I've been following your page for years, I feel like. And I have so many questions for you. So you talk all about spiritual and temporal preparedness. Yes. And you make such great content. And I just have so many questions for my own personal reasons. But we'll get into that. But I want to hear, just tell everyone a little bit about yourself and kind of how you started creating content.
So I grew up in Orem, Utah. I have I think there's 7 kids all together in my family. So we come from a really big family. And growing up, I was a really big soccer player. I loved soccer and I grew up in the church. I have always loved the church and got a full ride scholarship to, I think it's called Utah Tech now. It was Dixie at the time. And I met my husband there, and we got married in the Mount Benogas Temple.
Cute. And, I don't know, my home temple.
Yeah, our temple, right?
Yeah.
And I now have 4 beautiful children. And it's so interesting about how I started prepping and started this account. And going back, my parents were preppers, and my mom's mother was a big prepper. And so growing up, I've always thought everyone did prepping. You know, we always had 72-hour kits. Our family evenings included a bunch of preparedness stuff where it's if there was an earthquake, what would you do? If there was a fire, what would you grab? And so that was always instilled, into me. And then as I got older and I got married, you kind of just get in that stage where it's well, if something happens, I'll go to my mom and dad, right? I'm just going to go there because they're prepared.
Yeah.
And we moved a few times. And so I knew how to do food storage. I just was I didn't have enough space or we're just constantly moving. Why have it, right?
Right.
And then it wasn't until it was December 2019. Right before the pandemic, right?
Oh my gosh,
and I had a prompting, and it was go to the
Get
store.
toilet paper.
And I got toilet paper. I can't get toilet paper. I tell people when there's something going on and they're get toilet paper. I'm you can't eat toilet paper.
Literally. Why was that the big thing?
It's
wild.
Good sanitation is huge in emergency preparedness.
Yeah.
But that was the main thing. And I'm why aren't you grabbing? I know pasta noodles in my area was always gone, which I was very surprised by. But I just remember the Lord was go to the store. Yeah, get sanitary, get medicine, and get food. And I was I have this picture that I took, and it's my daughter's with me, and the cart is overflowing with stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And I was okay, I'm just grabbing all this stuff. And my husband's what are you doing?
Yeah, because that's not a normal grocery trip.
No, it's not. But I was I have this feeling something's going on. And I have this prompting. Sure enough, within, was it March, everything shut down. And I was oh my gosh, this is the wake-up call that I think everyone needed, the world needed. We are so relaxed in our everyday lives. We don't realize that our lives can change in a snap of a finger.
Oh, yeah. We're so used to the modern conveniences, Amazon Prime. I mean, even during the pandemic, a lot of that stuff was still available. But I thought all the time during the pandemic, what if this wasn't available?
Yes.
What would we be doing right now?
Yes, exactly. And so a lot of people are so reliant too on medication. And it's when stores were closed, where were they getting that medication? You know, there's so much importance in preparedness. And so I was thinking okay, I need to start being better because we just moved into our house right before that happened too. So we had nothing. I think that's why the Lord's okay, come on, let's get going here. And so I remember that I was like, okay, I need to start looking up how to store food correctly. And I couldn't find anything. Like I would go like on like Pinterest or YouTube, but it was very hard to find. And there was just many different opinions. And I'm like, where is the right stuff? Where is the correct way to store water properly? How to put your 72-hour kits together? Because some 72-hour kits were like bug out bags, like survival mode.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think my kids need knives in their 72-hour, you
like
know?
machetes.
And yeah. And so I had to like learn on my own on how to do 72-hour kits and store things and experience it for myself. And then in October 2021, this was during President Nelson's talk. And it was conference. And I remember exactly where I was. I was on the table with my daughter and we were doing a puzzle while we were listening to conference. And President Nelson so boldly in his talk said, "These are the latter days." And I still get goosebumps over it. I just remember, I call it my soul awakening. I woke up. There was something different in his voice and his tone of voice. And it was like Moroni blowing his trumpet. And he was saying, God has called you to do something and you need to be all in right now.
Wow.
And I right then and there, I was like, yeah, I'm all in. I have been a member my whole life. I have always had a testimony of the Book of Mormon, of Joseph Smith. I went to church, but this was different. This was like living higher and holier. This is like God's like, hard times are coming, perilous times are coming, and I need you to step up your game. And so I was like, okay, like I became obsessed with the conference talks after. I remember flying to run the Boston Marathon, and I was studying all the talks like in my headphones, like while I was flying there. I was obsessed with it because I was like, something's happening and I need to be ready. And then I was like, but where do I start? What do I do? Like, what does he want me to do? And I got into I read my scripture, the Book of Mormon. I don't think I read the Book of Mormon all the way through since seminary. And that was years ago, you know? And so I was like, okay, first I need to open my scriptures, study conference talks, study the scriptures. And I remember like I was reading books like from church scholars, and I knew I would pray and say, okay, you told me I need to do something. What do I need to do? And he said, not yet. And I was like, okay.
Interesting. So it wasn't like you need to do food storage. It was just like something's coming.
Something's coming. And
that's ominous.
Yes. And so I was like, okay, he's preparing me for something. What can I do in this preparation time before he's going to have me do something? So that's what I was doing. I was just constantly I stepped up my game, like in church, you know, like I told my bishop, I'm like, I want a good calling. I want to be here. I'm all in. What can I do to help, you know? And
I love that.
He was amazing. You know, he really was my favorite bishop. He's now my stake president. And I love.
Isn't that the best?
I was kind of sad though too, because I was like, he left me, but he's still around. I love him. He's the best. But it wasn't till January where I was seeing things online that I wasn't agreeing with. And it was going against the prophet. It was, you know, it's crazy times were going around. There was a lot of stuff going on in the world, a lot of uncertainty, rumors of war, you know, everything you read in the scriptures, right? Yeah. And I was following Becky Squire. And
we love Becky.
I love her. And I was following Sarah Feltz.
Oh yeah, we just had her on too. She's great.
Oh, I love those girls. They're
so great.
They're special, and I love them so much. They're such good people. And Becky was talking about spiritual gifts, and she goes, "Do you know your spiritual gift?" And I was like, I mean, I know I'm good at some things, like, but I don't really know. So she has like a cute little quiz that you could do, and they were talking about how we need more people sharing goodness online. And Sarah Phelps, I think she partnered up with Becky or did something and was like, yes, please, we need more voices. And I remember sitting in bed and I turned to my husband. I was like, I kind of want to. And he was like, go for it. And I was like, oh, like I was actually taken back because sometimes a lot of us are worried about offending people around us and the ones close to us. And so I thought he'd be like, oh, well, you need to be careful or something. Right. But he was like full on board.
Oh,
and
love
he's like,
that.
no, you should do that. And I was like, so because of him too, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. But then I was like, but what do I talk about? Like, yes, there's church things that we can speak about, but I want something to go with it. And so because of Becky talking about spiritual gifts, I was able to start writing down what I was good at. Like I'm a good runner, I'm a good mother, I'm good at this, but what is it? And immediately my mind was prepping. And because like I said before, it's so hard to find the right way to prep online. And a lot of preppers who I love online, a lot are preparing for the end of the world, I guess you can say. And it's intense and it is fearful. And when I think about hard times coming or the second coming, I don't think about the fear. I think about peace and excitement. And because they have told us over and over again, if ye are prepared, ye shall not fear. And so, but if you are not prepared physically or, spiritually, there's going to be a lot of fear.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so important to have those in your life. And that's what really got me started was that. And
wow,
it's been a journey, and I absolutely have loved helping people around the world.
Totally. And that's so cool. I didn't realize. So the start of your page was almost like, come along with me as I'm kind of doing this myself.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And I have had the Lord with me the whole time. And it's so interesting because sometimes I just want to post things because it's like, well, these people, like I see other people posting and they're doing these posts and they're getting all this engagement. And I'm like, oh, well, I should just post this thing. And the Lord's like, on my time.
Yeah.
And there was one post I did and I distinctly remember it. And it was about garments. And I heard this phrase. My husband was on a friend trip with a friend, and this guy said this quote and about garments, and my husband loved it. So he called me and he was like, listen to this quote my friend said. And I was like, wow, that was really good. I went to bed, and the next morning when I woke up, I still remember it was that God said, okay, you are going to do this reel. You're going to use this song. You are going to say this, and it needs to be done by 11 o'clock and posted. 11 a.m.
Oh my gosh, I said, with the deadline and everything.
There was a deadline. And so, yeah, I know, right? So I got up, I did it. And you know how reels are. It's time consuming. But luckily my kids just stayed, like playing. They never bothered me. So I was able to get it all done, posted. That is my most viral reel.
I know. I think I know exactly what one you're talking about.
Yeah. And
that's
so
incredible.
It was like, and I feel like that's why you follow the Spirit. And sometimes I'm not saying every time it's going to go viral, but sometimes it's that 99+1, right? That President Nelson talks about. Yeah. It's finding that one sheep, that one lost sheep that needed to hear it that day. And so I'm like, okay, do I post this? And I have to like rely on the Lord to be like, yes, please post that.
Totally.
We need to hear that. So I always rely on him when I am posting online.
Oh my gosh, I do too. And I think it's so interesting because I never I don't know, just saw my life going the direction where I'm posting and doing what I'm doing now. But it's like, it really is so interesting how in tune with the Spirit. And people probably think like, oh, whatever, she just posts on Instagram, it's silly. But like I've had reels recorded where I'm like, okay, no, I actually, like I'm about to press post and it's like, no, don't. Or sometimes I would just post it because I'm like, oh, I just spent so much time making this. And then it's like, take that down right now. And it's like, oh, okay. We'll do. And then sometimes it is like a prompting like this, you need to post this specific message. And like, and then it's incredible to see how it can reach people. Someone will message like, that's exactly what I needed to hear today.
Yes.
And it's like the spirit works through social media.
It's so interesting because I remember I did a post and it took me forever to put it together. And I posted and it got very few likes. And I was like, cool. This is awesome. And I got a message from a girl saying that she was in tears because it was something she was praying for and she found it. And she wasn't even following me at the time. She was scrolling and found it.
Crazy.
And I've even had people message me saying that they didn't even know what LDS meant. They were, one girl is from Sweden. And so she looked it up. And she said she could feel the spirit in on my page. Aww. And so she went and found the missionaries and got baptized.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Oh, so, those are my favorite stories to hear.
I was like,
incredible.
You know, it wasn't, and I'm like, it wasn't because of me. It was because of the spirit.
Yeah.
It was the spirit that testified to her. And then she had to put the work in to go find it. But I'm glad that I was able to help her.
Yes, and be a part of her journey.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, this is why we do it, right?
I know, because I get so many people are like, how do you deal with all the negativity and the hate? And it's like, we wouldn't keep doing it if it weren't for the one, like you said.
100%. And I think no matter what you do, you'll always get negative people.
And totally. Especially today, you can't post something online and not have people be negative about it. Like that's 100%. Just the social media culture right now.
Because you think about it, like you worry about posting something and then people are like, oh, that's contentious, and I'm like, you make it contentious. You're the one that, and because I just post like one of my posts, like garments, right? We post about garments and then people could be offended because we're talking about garments. And it's like, but it's good to speak about these things. You know, they're talking about it in conference.
Well, yeah. And if you're going to be offended by the choice that I am happily choosing, that's a you problem.
Yeah. Yes. It's like take a step back and ask yourself, why are you offended?
Right.
And then you know, figure it out. So yeah, I get it.
I get it. I know. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
No, but okay. I'm so curious, like, about food storage. So let me just tell you, my husband and I, we've moved like every year since we've gotten married, which has been like 6 years now. But now we've been in Utah for almost 2 years. It's the longest we've lived anywhere since we've been married. And for that reason, I've kind of been putting off food storage just because I'm like, okay, either we didn't have space when we were like going to school, or I'm like, I know we're going to be relocating again soon. And it's going to be a pain to like, why would I buy all this stuff just to have to move it? And I also just don't even know where to start. So that's a little bit about where I'm coming from. And I really need your help, honestly. Like I wanted to bring you on selfishly.
You're not alone in that. I just want to let you know, you're not. I get a lot of those comments.
Okay. So, well, the first thing actually I want to like intro this with is like, I feel like a common thing that I hear people saying is like the prophets and apostles in general conference have not talked about food storage recently, so it must not be a priority, right?
Yes.
What would you say to those people?
I get this a lot. It's surprising where it's like, well, they haven't spoken about it.
About it specifically.
Yes, but do you have eyes to see and ears to hear? Sometimes people say that and I'm like, are we listening to the same conference? Because I just heard it, you know? Yeah. Especially October 2020 conference. Oh my goodness. So amazing. And I think they re-emphasized it because of what was going on in 2020. And President Nelson talked about, I think it's called Embrace the Future with Faith. And he talks about spiritual, emotional, and temporal preparedness. And he talks about our favorite man, Captain Moroni. Just like, I love him.
Collectively, yes, agreed.
He's the best. And he goes on and talks about how Captain Moroni, he was always preparing. He was preparing his people. He gives like 3 examples. So he gives like the one about, if I remember correctly, it's like preparing like your home, pretty much. That's your first line of defense is your house. And so I think that's why they also did Come Follow Me at Home. They want our homes to be a safe place for our children and for us. And to be teaching the gospel there. And then he goes on to talk about how Moroni never stopped preparing, ever. He said the adversary never stops attacking. So Moroni never stopped preparing.
Oh, I love
and
that.
we need to be doing that too. You know, it's true. The adversary, I feel like he's up in his game.
Oh, totally.
You know, his time is coming.
Oh, yeah.
So he's ramping it up. And so we need to be ramping it up. We need to make sure that we are putting on the armor of God and we are preparing for his relentless attacks. That's what President Nelson says. And then Elder Bednar comes along and also in the same conference. And he talks about food storage. And he gives a story how he and his wife during COVID would bring like a can. They had a can and they opened it up and it was so expired. And he,
do you
remember that
I
one?
remember that.
And he is like, oh boy. and I can't remember the quote exactly. I need to memorize this, but
it's your motto.
I know. And he says like, just because these like, it's been, what do you say? A repeated admonition, you know, from these past prophets doesn't mean that it's like, because we don't talk about it today, doesn't mean it's not important. It's so important. So he emphasizes that. And I think with the prophet, because it's been repeated even in the scriptures, you know, we have Noah who had to prepare, and there was Joseph, right? The 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. There's just so many stories about them preparing and not knowing the time.
Right.
But had trust in the Lord and was like, I am preparing because you told me to. And that's why I too focus on spiritual preparedness, because
they go hand in hand.
Yeah. A lot of people, they'll message me and they'll say, okay, I want to prepare. Where do I start? And I say, well, have you prayed about it? Because
this is the question we all need.
Yes. Because like for me, sometimes you just know.
Yeah.
You know what it is because it's been on your mind. And it's like, the Lord doesn't need to tell you, you know already.
Yeah.
You know, he's been already poking at you. So
you said that and I had something come to mind. Like I know what you mean. Exactly.
See, mine was 72-hour kits.
Yeah. Me too. Like emergency, like.
Yes, because we're in Utah and we are prone to earthquakes. And I remember we had that earthquake in 2020.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I remember like that happening and I was like, oh, yeah.
Is this the end?
I need to be a little better at that.
Yeah.
And the tricky thing I have to teach people is people will have 72-hour kits, but they get exhausted because they have to keep changing it out.
Oh,
and so what I do is I have to teach them how to pack it without being like, okay, in a couple months, you have to switch this out.
Right.
We're busy. You know, we have lives, we have jobs, we have kids, like we have busy lives. We don't have time to sit down every couple months and just switch these things out. It's hard. It's time consuming.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can get expensive. It doesn't need to be, but sometimes it can.
Yeah.
And so I try to be like, okay, yearly, switch it out. We always do it during conference. There's always fun ideas you could do with the treats that you had in their bags. You eat it for conference and then you switch them out.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good idea.
Yeah.
I love that.
Little things, right?
Yeah.
And then I tell people to pack. Kids grow so fast, right? They grow quick.
I know. I was just thinking, I'm like, I'm going to have to change the size of diaper. Like when I have this baby, it's like, how do you handle that?
I pack a size bigger.
Yeah.
That's what you do because it's like if you pack it, you'd rather have it be too big than be too small.
Oh, yeah.
And I also tell people to pack long sleeve shirts and long pants because when it's cold outside, you will stay warm. But if it's hot, you can just get scissors and cut the sleeves in the pants.
So we do need the machetes for cutting the long sleeves.
Yeah. So I guess we do need the knives. But yeah, so that's why I tell people, I'm like, don't stress about it because it can be stressful. That's why people put it off. It can, and it feels overwhelming, right?
Totally.
So that's how I tell people, I'm like, follow the Holy Ghost and trust in him.
Yeah.
The process can be okay. And I know some people are worried. They're like, well, what if I'm not doing enough? What if I'm not doing enough? And I always tell them, and it's like, the Lord loves effort, and he will help you when you need it.
Yeah.
So
if it's something he's asking us to do, why wouldn't he be there for us as we're doing it? So
exactly.
Oh, I love that. See, here I am. I'm like, okay, I want you to give me the list of like, okay, what needs to be in my kit? Yeah. And I was just totally like mind blown. Like, I need to pray about it. You know what I mean? And like, why wouldn't that be the first step?
Yeah. It's like, you always just want to include him in it. And I have gotten people that messaged me and they're like, I prayed about it and I had a prompting to get a raft. And I was like, really? And she goes, yeah. And I live in St. George.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, okay. And I was like, so did you use it? She's like, no. She's like, but I feel like the Lord was testing me. That it was like, you need to get this. And she goes, and he was going to see if I was going to do it. And she goes, now, will we use it down the road? Will there be a flood? Will it be this? She's like, I don't know, but I'll be ready for it.
Oh my gosh, good for her.
I know, because I feel like if I told my husband, like, we need a raft, he'd be like, why? We don't live near water.
The Great Salt Lake is supposed to...
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's drying up. Never mind. Yeah. That's the opposite. Yeah. At least he was asking her to build a boat. That's good for her. Right. Just go get one. No, okay. That was such a good reminder.
Yeah.
But for the people out there who are like, okay, I do want the logistics.
Yes.
If you were to give like top couple, maybe 3 to 5 things in a 72-hour kit, and is there a reason it's 72 hours? I've heard of like I don't know if we called ours that growing up or if it was just like our emergency like backpack. Is 72 hours like, is that what we should go for?
Yeah, it's called like 72 hours or bug out. It's 3 days.
Okay.
It's 3 days. So,
and that's kind of just like the standard thing.
Yeah, it's the standard thing. So it's like 3 days you want breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. Okay. And this is what's interesting too, is that I've had a few friends that tested out their 72-hour kits.
Oh, cool.
And they said the 2 things they did not have that they wish they had, they didn't have enough food and they didn't have entertainment. And the kids got bored pretty fast. Yeah. And so she said, so she was focus on those as well. They had everything else. Like they had their clothes, you bring your deodorant, shampoo. There's a little emergency things like hand warmers, whistles. I like to have these picture books. And because when you're using your 72-hour kit, it's not going to be for something joyful.
Right. Right.
So for the picture books, the kids can look back and think of good times. But also if they get lost, they will have pictures of family members. And then inside the book, you put in phone numbers. So if we have phones or if there is electricity or anything like that, they'll be able to call us and locate us.
Oh my gosh, I love that idea.
Yes, it's just the little things, but they go a long way, and then I got glow sticks. It's like, well, people are like, why do you need glow sticks? It's like, well, what if you have to evacuate? Let's say we can't use our car. Let's say it's dark. You have glow sticks so you can keep track of your children. Yeah. And then it's fun.
Totally.
Your kids will like it. So you think of the little, I keep adding to it. I love going to like the dollar store. They have so much. Ooh. And like just the little dollar sections they have like at Target or at Walmart. I mean, you just go there and they have everything. And then you can use things in your home as well. Like I have stuffies, these little stuffies, because that will bring my little kids comfort. Yeah. And so if they have a little stuffed animal they haven't used in a while, they just throw it in the bag.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Yes. So,
and what do you use? Like, are they backpacks or?
I have backpacks, and then I put everything in Ziploc bags.
Okay.
And the reason why I do that, number one, it keeps it organized, right? Like with food, I write down the days on them. Like this is day 1 food, day 2 food, because you don't want to be eating food and then go back in and then be like, oh, wait, which one was I eating out of? And then it just it's like, your limit and that's what you have.
Yeah.
And then I also use a box bag because what if it's raining? You are going to need to have everything dry, right? Yeah. And and that too, if you have it stored and then you have like a flooding in your house or anything like that, it keeps everything safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I keep the Ziploc bags.
Okay, smart.
It keeps them nice and tidy.
Yeah. And walk me through too, like for a 72-hour kit, obviously that's only 3 days. So I feel like that's like, this seems to me like more short term than like the end of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I could see possibly pulling it out if like, I don't know, the power was out. Like what kind of scenarios would you see yourself using?
Oh, so for me,
kit?
I have a shelf in my garage and I pack it up like it's a camping trip.
Okay.
So I have like a tent. I have extra water. I have a solar generator. And because what people don't realize too is when they're packing food, let's say that they're going to a church building or, you know, they're not driving to a friend's house far or a hotel or anything. How are you going to cook your food?
Yeah.
And so I tell people, like, if you're too stressed out about that, make sure you buy food you don't need to cook. So like granola bars, beef jerky, nuts, things like that.
Right.
But if you want food cooked, make sure you have like a portable stove that's just packed on the side. That's an easy, quick grab and go. I'm really hoping if there was ever an emergency like this that I have my car. Because it's like the last thing I want is to grab all this stuff and throw it in a wagon and then be pulling it. These backpacks,
you have to think about that too.
These backpacks can get heavy.
Yeah.
They're very heavy. And so that's why like I'll pack the dinners in my backpack. My husband and I have the dinners.
Okay.
And then I tell him, like, don't worry, it will lighten up the more. But we have a 3-year-old. So we have to take note that we'll probably be carrying it.
And probably her too. Also the 3-year-old.
Oh yeah. I'll give her to my 14-year-old. That's fine. Just kidding. But yeah, so we have to keep things in mind. But I store things on there like it is a camping trip. I have something called a fun kit. And it's entertainment. So it has journals so they can write down like what's happening or they can draw. It has hard candy because hard candy does not really expire, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And so for little kids, you do suckers, like Dum Dum suckers. And then like the older kids, we have more like Lifesavers, Jolly Ranchers, things like that will make them feel like they're not as hungry and it will pass the time. So we have that. We have a Book of Mormon. We have little dolls, like dolls that I found in my house, like, because I have girls. I have all girls. And so I found the little dolls that I noticed they were not really playing with, and I just put them in a Ziploc bag and put it in the fun kit. So if something does happen, they have games. I have older kids, so we have card games, checkers. And so it's like if you do have your car and you have to go for a long car ride, or you're stuck in a car, or you're stuck in a building somewhere, they have something to do.
Yeah.
So
see, that is not something that I thought about. Like you think food, water, clothes, like sanitation,
which are the most important. And this is interesting. So I have a friend who said she experienced a fire by her house. And so they told them they needed to evacuate within, I think it was 20 minutes. They needed to get in their car and go. So she was like, okay, she lives in a smaller home. So she didn't have backpacks for each kid. Instead, she had one big duffel bag, which I told her, it's so smart. You do what you know is best for your family. Yeah. And she knew the duffel bag was the way to go. So she grabbed her duffel bag.
She already had it packed up.
She had it packed up, ready to go. And they got into the car and she looked around to her neighbors and they were grabbing picture frames. They were grabbing things from the house. And she's like looking at them and she's like, how are you gonna, I mean, I get those things are precious, but our lives are more precious. Right. And you can't eat a picture frame. Yeah. Like if you go hungry, if we have to evacuate and we don't have other places to go, like let's say there was a huge earthquake here and there's no safe zone, like you're going to need food. Yeah. You're going to need those extra pair of clothing. I tell people to pack 2 pairs of socks because what if you have to walk through water and anything like that, you're going to have wet socks and you're going to want dry ones. Yeah. And so, but she was telling me, it confirmed to me that it is good to be prepared now, because when you're in an emergency, your mind doesn't think clearly. And it's like, what do I grab? What do I grab?
Right.
And she goes, and for me, I was like, okay, I have everything ready to grab. My duffel bag. She had her emergency binder that had all the important documents. She goes, I had what was most important.
Yeah.
And then her family. And then they were able to get out and beat the crowd. And
yeah.
So it really is important. She said that she never thought there'd be a fire by her house. They don't live by places that have fires. So
crazy.
It's the little things that you don't think about, but when the hard times come, it's like, I got this.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm prepared.
Okay. Talk to me about, she had an emergency binder. Is that something? Tell me about that.
Okay. It's funny. It's not as talked about as much because it's boring.
Sounds important though.
But it's extremely important. It is a binder. So for my binder, I keep extra cash. And especially like ones, tens, so you can give exact cash, because if there's something to do, like let's say the power is out, if you go to a store, you cannot use your credit card.
Right.
You can't use your phone. So how are you going to pay for certain things?
Yeah.
And then they're what if they don't have the exact change? You know, you just want to get in and out. So you have that change for that. Other things you have in there is like your birth certificates, social security numbers. A lot of people like to do pictures of their house for house insurance. You do passwords for certain like websites, like for your bank, because this is not only for grabbing and going if, you know, there's an emergency. It's also preparing for job loss, death, you know, like if you have your loved one, your partner that passed away.
Yeah. Do
you know the passwords? Do you know how to pay for certain things? Like in my relationship, my husband is my banker.
Yeah. Same.
So he knows it all. So if something happened to him, am I going to know the passwords and how to pay for these things?
Oh,
and
that's so smart.
We put our patriarchal blessings in there. People that are divorced, they need to make sure they have things for child support, just like the important files.
Yeah.
And so that's what we have in our binder. And a lot of people put them in safes because obviously it's your whole life in there. Right. But you know where it is and it's ready to go. So and
you have that like with your 72-hour kit. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So where I have mine in my house, but it's in an area where if something happened, it is so fast.
Okay.
Like I can just quickly grab it. And a lot of people wonder, where can I put 72-hour kits? And sometimes I'm like under beds, right? Like your kid will know where to grab it.
Yeah.
And grab and go. I always tell them, try to put it near an exit. Because that's where you're going, right? When you are leaving. Some people put it in the basement. And if that's the only space you have, like, that's fine.
Right.
But you do want it, like, if there was, like, I always talk about earthquakes, but if there was an earthquake or a flood or anything like that, it's going to hard to be like, okay, it's rumbling and I got to run down the stairs.
Right.
Like, instead, it's like, oh, it's right here, you know, near my front door, or it's in my garage. You know, it's very quick to get in and get out.
Cool. Okay. I love that.
Yeah.
I am like, I don't know about you guys, but this is like lighting a fire for me. It already was on my to-do list to do like before the baby comes, just so I kind of had it done. But now I feel like I actually have more motivation because I know like what to do. Yeah. So this is a great starting point.
Well, and I want to let you know this too. You don't have to get it done all at once. It took me like 3 months.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, sometimes preparing, it's a lot of money. You know, and especially when you're first starting out, you don't have all of them. So that's why I'm like, you know, look for a backpack that your kid's not using anymore. You know, that just use that. It doesn't have to be this big professional ones you see online. Yeah. Just use what you have in the home and take your time with it. And then once it's put together, it's like, okay, this is when we finished it. In a year, I'll see you in a year. Yeah. And then it won't be as pricey or expensive because all you're really switching out is kids' clothes and food. That's it. My gosh, everything else stays in there. So
yeah, that's a great reminder because I was thinking like in today's economy, I feel like there's so many people who are just like trying to get by. Like I'm trying to survive the now, not thinking about the end of the world. So I feel like that's such a good reminder. Use what you have, build it up slowly. Yeah. It's like maybe it'll take a few months, but that's better than like start now. Yeah.
Well, and people get overwhelmed with preparedness because they hear 72-hour kits, water storage, long-term storage. I mean, it's like there's a lot more to that too. There's a lot in preparedness. And I tell people it's like people get that they want to take it all in at once. And then they are like, this is too much. I can't do this anymore. And it's like, I give the analogy of a person cleaning a house, right? Let's say the house is just absolutely destroyed and you need to clean it. And so you're going there and trying to clean it and you get overwhelmed and you're like, this is impossible.
Right.
But when you focus on a room, just one room, get that cleaned, check that off the list, then go to the next room. Yeah. And then eventually you will get to where everything's clean. It's the same way with preparedness. Focus on one thing. That's why you be prayerful, right? Say, Lord, what do you need me to do? How can I prepare? And he'll be like, okay, do this first. Water storage, right? Where people are in a drought, right? So focus on water. You can only survive 3 days without water. So do that. Yeah. And then focus just on water. And then once you get that done, it's like, okay, I'm done. What's next?
Okay, cool. So, no, I love that. If you were to say, obviously we want to be prayerful about our decisions, but like the different rooms in the house, what would you say? So we know 72-hour kits, like what other categories are there? Water.
Hands down.
Okay.
I tell a lot of people water because food is important, but you can survive, I think it's like 2 to 3 weeks without food. But only,
are you serious?
But only 3 days without water.
Oh my gosh.
So that's why I tell people, I don't think people realize how important water is.
Yeah.
And I even get a lot of followers that talk to me about like when they go through hurricanes and stuff like that, they, you need water to flush your toilets. And the water's not clean anymore. So they can't use their faucets and they have to use just bottled water. And so it's really important. I like to I have my cleaning water, as I say, and then I have my drinking water.
Okay.
And so I have 2 different types of water stored away. And like one of them is like for washing my clothes, for flushing toilets. And I think like flushing toilets, like it's almost a full like gallon just to flush a toilet.
Really?
Yeah. And so
that's a lot.
I know. It's like crazy. And so that's why a lot of people talk about sanitation preparation. It's not talked about very much because it's the yucky stuff. People are like, I don't want to talk about that. That's kind of gross. But I'm like, but we're all human.
Right. We're going to need that. Like we're going to wish we had prepared for that.
There was that tsunami that happened. Oh, I can't remember where it was. It was somewhere in the world. And a lot of people were dying because they didn't have clean water and people were going to the bathroom in the river or where the tsunami happened. And then people had to drink that water because they had nothing to drink and they were dying. And so it is sanitation, but water, having clean water is important. And that's why not only water storage is important, you can expand on that and say water filters, right? If you run out of water in your home, how are you going to filter and be able to drink water, how to cook with water? I have a lot of freeze-dried food. So it's like, and I need water to rehydrate it. So I got to make sure I have clean water. So I emphasize to people, like, get water filters to go with your water storage.
Okay. So like water storage, how long are we talking like?
So the recommendation, I believe they say is 14 days.
Okay.
And so is that 14 days? Is that right? Or I can't remember exactly.
That's okay. And who's the recommendation coming from?
The church.
Okay.
Yeah. And just like preppers around the world. I think you need, I think it's 2 weeks and you need a gallon a day. So,
and for each member of your family.
For each member of your family. And for me personally, I think you're going to need more than that. I think it's like 2 gallons. But this is like you're limiting yourself.
Right.
This is like you're drinking some. It's supposed to be for cooking, bathing, brushing your teeth, stuff like that. But I think we don't realize how much water we really do use. We use a ton of water. And so I tell people focus on the 14 and then eventually start building on that.
Okay.
And just be like, okay, like there's the bottled water from Costco. It's so cheap and there's a ton of them.
Yeah.
So you get 3 of those and you're good for one person.
Okay.
It's like, it really isn't like that. People see those big blue drums, right?
Yeah.
They're like the 50 gallon. Those are great. And that will last your family for a while, right? But for a family that's like the 7, it doesn't last as long. But
right.
I like to have my drums, but those are for the emergency. And then I have my bottled water, because bottled water you can just quickly grab and just easy drink, where the other ones you have to pump it out.
Right.
So you got to think about not only like the water, but then how you're going to use the water and the easiest way for you to use it.
Okay. That seems so much more accessible, though, just thinking about 3 of those cases of water.
Yeah. And then you can just store them like in your garage, in your basement. It's when I remember I did a visual on my Instagram and people were like, oh,
like, that's it?
That's it? That's all I need? And it's like, yeah, that's it. That's all you need. And they're like, oh, okay, well, you just made that easy, because when you think about it, you're like, oh my gosh, 40 gallons. I'm like, that is a ton of water.
Right.
But then when you give them the visuals, that's why I am like a visual learner. And I think other people, it's easier for them to visually learn as well. So that's why I like on my Instagram, I like to show things. And I think that's what was hard for me when I was first starting out, is like, I couldn't understand like what they were talking about.
Right.
So
it just seems so abstract, and like thinking about the future like that is honestly kind of scary. But I feel like talking about it like this, like, hey, next time you're at Costco, just grab an extra case of water and then give it a few months and you're done. It's
like that with everything. I feel like some people, they're like, I live check by check,
Right.
How can I prepare? And I just tell them, grab just one can of beans. That's all you need. They're 69 cents at Walmart. And I'm telling you, every time you do that, your food storage will build. It will build. And it's shocking how much that's helped people. Yeah. I've had people message me saying like, I did this big food storage. Like, I started because of you. Like, they were being so nice. And then they're like, and I was expecting to be like, Jesus is coming and I'm going to use this and I'm going to be prepared. And she goes, and my husband lost his job. And she goes, and we had to live on our food storage for a full year.
Oh my gosh.
And she's all like, but she's like, I want to thank you. She's like, because she's like, we would have not been prepared for this. And she was pregnant, I think, with her 3rd child. And it's scary. It's so scary. And
sometimes that's the emergency.
It is. Yeah. People think we're preparing for a zombie apocalypse, you know, but we're preparing for everyday life. And that's why it's important to be prepared, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
Whether it's a natural disaster, a job loss, a family member who gets sick, that, and they can't work anymore, or death, so we're preparing for everything.
Oh my gosh. Such a good reminder. Start now, people. Like,
start. Like, it doesn't have to be a big thing. Like, you start small, the smallest things. And I even had, like you talked about how you moved, right?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you that next.
Yes. Yeah. And I had a few of these cute moms. They, their husbands are in the military.
Oh, yeah.
And so they move a lot. And she talked about how she was living in Hawaii and they had food storage, and her husband, they had within a year that her husband had to move again. And she talked to me about the importance of, she would give her food out to her friends, and she goes, I know that sometimes it's a pain. It's a lot of work, sometimes a lot of money. And she's like, but I know the importance behind it. And that's why I keep doing it. Wow. It's because I have been told to. And I was like, you inspire me.
Oh, that's like, incredible.
It's incredible to stay faithful and to keep doing that, because we live very comfortable lives, know, like every day. You don't think about hardships or anything like that. It's just, you live every day to day, taking your kids to school and everything else. And for me, I see where we're at in the world, and we are living in very perilous times. And when you listen to conference talks, especially President Eyring, Oh man, I love him. And his few conference talks have emphasized over and over about being prepared because hard times are coming.
Yeah.
And, he talks about having the Holy Ghost, right? And he goes, we're going to need it minute by minute. And I believe that.
Yeah.
And so when these hard times are coming, we're going to need the Holy Ghost to be like, okay, you need your 72-hour kits right now.
Yeah.
And I love the emphasis that our leaders are giving us. Sometimes, like you said, they're like, people are like, oh, I haven't heard them talk about it. And I'm like, are you having eyes to see and ears to hear?
Right.
Are you just listening to conference and then just going about your day, your months, the next 6 months? Or are you sitting and are you studying what they are asking us to do?
Yeah.
So it's we have exciting times ahead, I think. Watching the world in chaos right now, I'm just like, people sometimes get fearful. You can get so fearful.
Mm-hmm.
The news likes to amp up things and
right.
But I have peace because I know who wins in the end. And I know that because I am prepared, because like Noah, when he was prepared, because of Joseph was prepared, all is well, and that's what Presiding says, all is well because of my temple covenants.
Oh, that's such an incredible perspective because I feel like who has the most reason to be fearful than you? Like you're thinking about this all the time. Like for me, I just don't want to think about it and I don't want it to happen. And, I just kind of block it out. But I have so much respect for you that you're like in the trenches with this, but you still continue to have that hope and faith. And like, it seems like you're excited about the future and you're not like thinking about how terrible it's going to be,
We're trying to build Zion, right? We're trying to gather Zion. And so when people prepare, a lot of times it's for me, right? Like this is for my survival and my family. And honestly, sometimes I get nervous about that too, because some people make other choices of not preparing and just living everyday life. And that's fine. But we are gathering Israel and it's like the city of Enoch, right? We are a people and we are here together. So if something hard happens, we are a family and we are going to help each other. And so I even have been freeze drying soup for my cute little neighbor she's 90 something years old. And I know if something happened, she doesn't have food storage. She doesn't have anything. And so I'm like, but she can have soup. So,
oh my gosh, that's incredible.
We got to remember that we're all in this together.
Right.
So instead of like, because a lot of people are like, don't tell them where you live. Don't tell them how much food you have. And I'm like, I get your perspective. I get it. I do. But we're in this together. How about instead of keeping things for yourself, how about you try to encourage others and teach them and just say, hey, let me help you with that. Do you know about this? And that's how we gather Zion, right?
Oh my gosh, good for you. Because I do feel like I'm not super into like the prepper world, but if I see something occasionally, I feel like it all is super self-centered. You have your bunker, you're going to take care of your family. Whereas the church, what they teach is so much like we're building Zion, we're all going to share. Like, does that, you kind of touched on this, but like, does that make you mad in a way of like, I'm putting in all this time, effort, money, energy, and I'm going to have to share with everyone who's choosing not to do that right now?
Yeah, it's hard sometimes because like you see someone going on a vacation, right? And you are not taking your family on vacation because you're trying to conserve and have money and prepare, right? And I mean, because sometimes I'm like, if they're coming and knocking on my door, I'd be like, God, try to prepare you.
You were at Disneyland while we were freeze drying this food, actually.
But I have to remember that we are all brothers and sisters of God.
Yeah.
And I tell people, be prayerful about these things. So if something big did happen and you are struggling with something, remember that God is full of miracles. We read that in the scriptures. And there's that story about, which prophet was it? It was a prophet that went to the woman and asked for food, right? And it was her last little bit. And she knew she was going to die with her son if she gave it away. But she did, having faith.
Yeah.
And it just kept replenishing, right? And I believe in those miracles. I believe if we truly have a good heart and help others, God will provide.
That is so beautiful. I aspire to have the faith that you have, because that, and I have so much respect for you and everything that you've been doing and how you've been sharing it with everyone. This has flown by. I feel like I could talk to you all day about this. No, because I really want to get on it. Like I'm actually, I feel excited about this now. Do you have anything else, like any last advice that you have for someone who maybe is like, I don't know where to start, or just needs some motivation to get going?
I just feel like the Lord, just remember the Lord will provide. Now, I know people do stress out about this, and I have emphasized that during this whole thing, right? But I just tell people, just get started. Just the little things, right? And I promise you, your food storage will build up, or your 72-hour kits will go. And it brings so much peace, because I feel like the world is ramping up. There's a lot of, we see it on social media with even persecution against Christians. And we need to be prepared physically and spiritually. And we need to be going to the temple. We need to be journaling and praying to our Heavenly Father every day. And not just like a prayer that's a shopping list, right?
Right.
It's, you are talking to Him like I'm talking to you right now. It's, you are building that relationship with Jesus Christ, and having that Spirit. President Eyring has emphasized this over and over and over in his talks, that we need to keep that relationship with the Holy Ghost. And it's not easy. Yeah. We have to be repenting. We need to be constantly be doing the right thing. But if we do these things, we will be prepared. The Lord will guide us, and it's not going to be easy, but the Lord will find a way, and all will be well. And I love this gospel of Jesus Christ. I am all in, as you can say. And I'm excited for the future. I'm excited that, because like I said before, we know who wins.
Yeah.
And even though there are gonna be hard times, we have Jesus Christ, and we have His atoning sacrifice, and we'll all be together here and in the afterlife. So I leave that.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. And honestly, I cannot recommend your page enough. If you're not already following Shayla, please, I had videos I wanted to watch with you, but we were just chatting away, which was great. But you have so many great tactical tips. You show food from the LDS food storage, which is a whole other thing we could get into. You talk about that, I know, on your page. But so many great tips. Please follow Shayla if you haven't. Where can people reach you? Are you just on Instagram?
Yeah, I'm just on Instagram,
cool.
LDS Prepper Girl. And I am as you guys can tell, I love to talk. So if you message me, I will message you back. Any questions? I am an open book.
Oh,
I want everyone to be prepared. I want everyone to be ready. So,
well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and being here today. This has been so much fun. And I'm so excited. I'm going to go home and look for backpacks and make my little 72-hour kit. So thank you seriously so much.
Make it fun.
Okay, well, let us know any thoughts or questions in the comments below, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye. Yay! Oh my gosh, that was so good.
Oh my gosh.
So much fun.
Yes.